Hi everybody, welcome back to Sunshine Soap and Candle Company. I'm getting ready to make a big batch of candles today. I'm pouring about 50 candles today, and I thought I would bring you along for one of the fragrances that I'm going to be pouring today. And I wanted to show you the process from beginning to end and also how I package and label them. You guys have seen a lot of candle videos from me now over the years, and this one is very similar to last fall and also 2024 fall candle making videos. So today I hope to be talking to you about making the candle, but also a few other things for my marketing and selling strategy this fall. As with all my other candle videos, I'm going to go ahead and place the recipe to this candle formula down in the description box below so you can replicate it if you want. And I'll also have the full written detailed step-by-step tutorial over on my Patreon page. If you haven't had a chance to check out my Patreon page yet, I hope that you will. I'll go ahead and place the link to it in the description box below for you. There's a ton to take advantage of over there. We've been posting weekly tutorials and recipes now for the last 7 years, and we are currently gearing up for the fall season and the gifting season. So there are a ton of fall inspired bath and body and candle projects over there for you to take a look at and take advantage of. There are literally hundreds of different formulas and tutorials, so I hope that you'll take a look at it and take advantage of it. I am a crowdfunded content creator, so your contribution to my campaign really helps my channel out. It really helps to support the videos and tutorials that I put out every week, and it really makes a difference and helps me to continue to do what I do best. So I hope that you'll consider it. Come on over, join the community. It's a great way to connect with me and other makers. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, this is just a batch of 10. The first thing we're gonna do is place our wicks down into it. Now I could make a bigger batch, but since I'm going to be pouring 5 different fragrances today, I've decided to break it up into batches of 10 and see how that goes. So the first thing we're going to do is place the wicks down to the bottom of the containers. Now I am using the Uline. These are from uline.com. They are straight-sided 8-ounce glass jars. They're rated for really high heat. I think they can withstand up to like 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, so they are perfect for candles because obviously they're not going to burn that hot. So they are great for candles. The color is really kind of trending, and this, I have found this to be a great size candle, and I'll go into that a little bit as well as we're moving along. So I am placing some CDN4. This is a CDN series number 4 wick. I got these from Hive and Honey. And the reason I'm using this wick with this container is because we're going to be using that same wax that I've been showing you now for the last couple years. We are going to be using the Soy Bliss Wax, also found at Hive and Honey. And the Soy Bliss Wax is a combination of, it's mostly soy, it's got a little bit of food grade paraffin in it that helps with the smooth tops. And that wax and container combination does really well with this number 4 wick, CDN4. And of course I'll be writing all of that down in the tutorial portion of this when I put it over on Patreon. I will put all the dimensions of the containers so that if you want to use a different container, you know, for best results, you would want the diameter of the container to be the same width. I'll put all of that in the written tutorial over there as well for you so that you'll have all of that information if you want to use a different container or just get more information regarding what we're doing today. So I will be placing the wicks down with these little wick stickers. You could also use a hot glue gun with hot glue that's rated for high heat or glass. Not all hot glue works well with containers. It has to be the high heat kind of hot glue, or else it'll just pull right up, or it will, when your candle starts to melt, it will float, it will come up. So make sure you're using a high heat glue. So we're using wick stickers this time. I've come to prefer this over the years. versus the hot glue. I just get a little bit more consistent results with this. Okay, I just eyeball this part. These containers are small enough that if they're not exactly center, it's not really going to affect the burn of your candle, as long as you're mostly center. So I always have a little pencil with an eraser, and I just push down, make sure they're in. And by the way, I don't think I've ever shown you this part, but when I prep my glass jars, all I do is pop the lids off. These are the lids that come with it. I wipe everything down with like a lint-free cloth, just like this cloth here. I wipe everything down first, just dry wipe everything down, and then I use rubbing alcohol to clean out the insides and the outsides of the container with that same cloth, and that just removes any dust and debris or anything that might prevent this from sticking. So that's all I do. If you're having a problem with your wick stickers sticking, just try a little rubbing alcohol, cleaning out your jar with a little rubbing alcohol before you start. Usually does the trick. So you guys have seen me make a lot of candles now with this combination. I'm going to be using different fragrances this year than I have in the past. In fact, I think they are all this year. I've been testing behind the scenes a bunch of new, you guys have probably been seeing that over on social media or Patreon if you follow me over there. I have been testing behind the scenes lots of different fragrance for my candles, and I've settled on 5 of them this year for a couple of reasons. In particular, all the ones that I've tested out smell really good, or the ones that I've settled on smell really good with this wax and container combination. They burn really well, and I think that, now this might sound like a broken record if you've been following me for some time, but I always try to do something a little bit different lately when it comes to fall fragrances. I really am a traditional kind of, myself, I'm kind of a traditional like pumpkin and apples and pumpkin spice kind of girl when it comes to my fall fragrances. But as I've come to learn, not everybody is. In fact, that kind of, I have found that kind of fragrance probably only does well in specific areas or markets anymore. So for my website sales, I really like to have something that is a little bit different or stands out from that traditional fall, but while also really kind of making you feel like in the mood for the fall season. So I'm excited to be sharing with you which fragrances I'm going to be using, but I'll be totally, I'll reveal the one that we're using in here, obviously, for this tutorial, and then the names and the scent notes that I'm going to be calling my other candles as well. So at least some of them, I'm not sure if all my labels are done, but at the end of the video, I'll reveal what that looks like. So I mentioned in the introduction that I am trying something a little bit new and wanted to go over with you some of my like sales and marketing strategies for this year, which are similar to last year's, but I'm doing something also a little bit different this year. So for my fragrances, so back to the fragrance combination, you want to do something, I think really what's sort of on trend right now is like, instead of like, for instance, instead of like a pumpkin spice, you would do something like, oh, Brambleberry has a really good one called Pumpkin Sandalwood. And that just brings in a pumpkin fragrance, but it's not a traditional like gourmand pumpkin spice fragrance that you might be used to or sick of. It's got gorgeous like spice notes, sandalwood. In fact, if pumpkin wasn't in the name, or you didn't know, you couldn't read the scent notes on it, you might not pick out the pumpkin in that fragrance at all, but still very fall themed or fall like. It's on point for the season, but it's just more, I would call it a little more like upscale, niche, maybe something that not everybody else has. And I've made candles with pumpkin sandalwood before, and it smells fantastic. I did that a few years back, and that candle smells really, really good. So if you're looking for a good one, I'm not doing that one this year, but it has been a great one in the past. And then instead of something like a straight red apple fragrance, maybe you're going to do something along the lines of dark orchard fruits, you know, a combination of apples and plums and other type of dark type orchard fruits would be another way to kind of elevate or make an upscale apple-y type fragrance. So those are some of the things that I'll be experimenting this year. Experimenting with this year, just in the way that I name my products along with the types of fragrances I'm using. I think that goes a long way. Anyway, I've seen a trend towards that in the last couple years, and that is what I'm sticking with. My fall line last year, interestingly, did very well, and so did my winter line. Everything sold out from last year's winter line. I still have a few fall stragglers, and they're still up for sale on my website. Just a few, like a handful, maybe 4 or 5. And what I found was my least best seller last year in the fall line of candles was my pipe and hearth candle, and maybe you guys have seen that one. If not, you can check it out on my website. But it's the pipe and hearth one I thought would actually do really well, because I think that kind of like tobacco pipe smoke fragrance has become pretty popular, and I'm typically not a huge fan of those fragrances, but the one that I purchased, the fragrance that I purchased, actually had a really well balanced kind of earthy, smoky, but it had some wonderful, I think maybe like sandalwood or some other notes in it that really tamed down, you know, kind of, sometimes the smoke smell in a fragrance can be, that smoky smell can be a little overpowering, almost a little bit like a liquid smoke type fragrance. It can get kind of overpowering and not great. So that's why I don't tend to gravitate towards them myself, but I thought I would give that one a try last year, and personally I actually really liked it. And it wasn't a super, like, some candles are very strong, overpowering. They will fill up a whole room, and I do usually like that. And this pipe and hearth one was just very, I would say moderately smelling. Like it wasn't overpowering at all, which sometimes I can be a little sensitive to if it's got that like pipe smoke smell to it. But maybe because people are starting to feel the same way I am with the pipe smoke fragrance, like just a little leery of what it might smell like. Let me know if you've ever tried anything like that. I also kind of shy away from like the alcohol smelling fragrances, like the bourbon and the whiskey type. And those also seem to be pretty popular. My experience with them, and I haven't tried a whole lot of them, but I've tried a few. my experience with them is that they smell just overpoweringly like alcohol, and that's just not my favorite type of smell to have in a candle. So, you know, let me know in the comments if you've tried the smoke kind of smell, the smoky kind of smells, how they do well, if they do well for you, or if you've tried like the whiskey inspired or the bourbon inspired fragrances. I did have one, I think, from Candle Science that I liked. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, several years back. It was not maple bourbon, but something else. In fact, I don't think I've ever, other than maybe smelling a maple bourbon type, maybe at Bath & Body Works, I don't think I've ever smelled or bought or smelled one out of the bottle. Anyway, so this year I'm going more, definitely still using some gourmand type fragrances, but they are a little less like bakery treat and more upscale and cozy and comforting, if that makes sense. So that's one of my strategies this year. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and put these wick clips on the candles to stabilize the wick. I got these from Candle Science. If you spill wax on these, by the way, pro tip, you can always just use a baby wipe. Use a baby wipe on them and it comes right up. Oh, I forgot to secure that one. I think I'm wicking about 12 of them right now. I said 10 because I think it's going to fill up about 10, but I always wick up a few extra candles because in the event that you get a little bit more than the 10 exactly, and that can happen if your fragrance oil is, fragrance oils are weighed by weight, not volume. So that's why when you order fragrance oils, some of the bottles look like they're not filled up as much and some of them are filled to the very top, and that's because they are weighed off by ounces or grams, not by volume. So you will be getting a little bit more fragrance oil sometimes by volume in your container, and that can affect how much you have left over when you're calculating a candle formula by weight. So sometimes you end up with a little bit more, and so I always have a few extra wicked off just in case. And if they don't get all the way filled up, that's okay. We just, around my house, we just burn the partially filled candles. I guess you could also, this wax is not meant, the wax that we're using today is not meant for wax melts, but if you're just for your own purposes, you could just use the leftover wax in a wax melter. You could pour it into like a little silicone mold and then pop it out and use it in a wax melter. That's a great way to use up extra wax. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to set these aside and then we're going to prep our wax. All right, so this total batch is 80 ounces, which is about 5 pounds for the 10 to maybe 12-ish candles that we're going to be pouring today. So this melt pot comfortably holds, like for pouring purposes, around 4 pounds of weight. And so I'm going to be using this little pancake batter thing to do my pouring. I've done that in the past. I haven't pulled this out in a while. I go back and forth on splitting that batch up into something smaller and more pourable all into the melt pot, and just pouring or melting everything down and using the little pancake batter thing. So today we're going to use the pancake batter thing to see how that goes again. And we're going to weigh off 72 ounces of this Soy Bliss Wax. So this is 90% of the formula, of the candle formula, is this Soy Bliss Wax, which again is mostly all soy wax. It's got a little bit of food grade paraffin, and I find this wax to be, you know, maybe it's a little bit more expensive. I know it's a little bit more expensive than a straight soy wax blend, but I really like this wax because it has very consistent results and it has smooth tops. You never get those bumpy tops like you do with 100% soy wax candles. It's super easy to use. You pour everything in at a higher temperature. You blend everything together at a higher temperature. That's how this wax works better. So there's not a lot of like waiting for the wax to cool. And you can pour it at a high temperature as well. You don't have to stir and stir and stir after you add your fragrance in. It's just overall a really good, well-rounded, well-performing wax. Now, I did just teach a class over on my Patreon. I did just teach a class on how to use an all-natural wax, and we used blended wax, or BW blended wax 917, and that is a combination of soy. Now I might not be able to get everything in here. Let's see. That is a combination of soy, beeswax, and coconut wax. And I taught a 2-hour class on how to make candles with that all-natural wax and all of the little pros and cons to using that wax compared to other waxes. So that class, if you missed it, again, it was a 2-hour class, is available. You can purchase the recording of the class, and it has a document on how to make the candles that we made in class that day that comes with it. So if you go over to my Patreon page and you check the shop section, you will see a class that we just did a couple weeks ago. And we used 2 fragrances, or I used one in the class, but I demonstrated one in the class, but talked about another fragrance that works really well. Both of them great for the fall. So if you're interested in an all totally natural one, and that wax that we used in the class is a little less expensive than this wax here, but also maybe a touch more expensive than a 100% soy wax, just because it has beeswax and also coconut. So I'm just weighing this off. I realize I'm going to have to take this out before I put it on the stove to melt. I'm going to have to take some of it out and wait for it to melt down before adding it all in. Now typically I use that wax warmer. You guys have seen me use that a lot of times as well. I'm going to see how this goes. I'm just going to melt this down in the pot and see how it goes. Just weighing it off. Again, we're weighing off 72 ounces. This is going to be 90% of the formula, the wax. Almost there. All right, so we're gonna melt this down on the stove on low heat. I'm gonna be babysitting it while it's melting, and I will bring you back when we're ready to add in the fragrance oil. All right, we are all melted down. This is a very full melt pot, and we're about to add in some fragrance oil here, and we are sitting at just above 200 degrees. And that is right where you want it when you add the fragrance into this wax. You want it a little bit above 200. We're sitting at 203, 202 right now. So we are going to pour the fragrance in, being very careful. Obviously, this is very full. Today I'm using some cashmere pumpkin fragrance oil. I'm going to be using a total of 8 ounces for this candle recipe. These are little 4-ounce containers, so I know that together they equal the 8 ounces. This is obviously very full. Again, we're going to be using that little pancake batter dispenser to pour. Just giving this a nice stir to combine. With this wax, again, you don't have to stir for 2 minutes straight, but since this has a lot in my pot, I am going to make sure that it's fully combined before we start pouring into our containers. Now, this fragrance oil smells really good. So this is along the lines of what I was saying to you earlier in the video regarding kind of an upscale instead of a, you know, pumpkin spice type of vibe. So this pumpkin cashmere fragrance definitely has some of those opening, like pumpkin, kind of gourmand, slight spice, maybe like a cinnamon or a nutmeg. But it doesn't smell like pumpkin pie. It almost smells like a roasted pumpkin. Kind of like lightly toasted or roasted, and it just smells really, really good. So when I reveal the packaging and labeling, that some of the things that I do with the titles and the names, I think also make a difference with sales, especially if you're selling on a website like I am, where people can't pick up and smell the candle themselves. So I'll show you all that when I get the packaging and labeling ready at the end of this video for you as well. So this is all we're gonna do. I'm gonna get my little pancake batter dispenser ready to go. This is awfully full. And I'm going to be very careful while pouring this in. Just taking it nice and slow. And then moving my candles over one by one. Containers over like this. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So when you do this, when you do it like this, you need to be very careful not to open your spout super fast. Just go slow. There we go. And then you have a little bit that's going to drip off to the side. I always just keep a little paper towel handy and kind of hold the tip on it like that for a sec. Or if you're quicker, you can move it right over to the next candle jar. So I don't know which way is best. I don't know if it's best to get everything melted down in the roast pot, and then you're dealing with the hot roast pot. That's a good way to melt down a bunch of wax at once and to keep it held at the temperature that you want it at. You guys have seen me do that a lot. But, you know, this is kind of convenient too, in a way, because you don't have to get the roast pot out, and this is a little easier to get in between the wick and the glass. It does require refilling, but you know, so does the roast pot method. Also requires refilling. Okay, just making sure I've filled these evenly to the top here. Just making sure I'm going nice and slow. And then while your candle is still in liquid form like this is a great time to adjust your wicks and make sure that they are center. So another thing I'm trying this year that's a little bit new is I'm going to launch 5 different candle fragrances. Typically, I launch 3. In fact, I don't think I've done more than 3. Maybe never. I can't really remember a time where I've had more than 3. Maybe way back when I just did candles exclusively. But even then, I don't really know. I think 3 has kind of been always my go-to. So this year I'm going to be launching 5 fragrances, and then last year something that worked really well for me that I'm going to be bringing back is selling the candles individually, but also selling them in bundles, and you get a little savings when you bundle. So I did 3 packs last year. I did a fall 3-pack and a winter 3-pack, and that actually worked really well for me. And I also offer like a free shipping on orders that are over $100 on my website. So buying a candle 3-pack plus a few other items could bump you up over that $100 mark and get you free shipping. And so I'm going to be doing the 3-packs again, and I might actually introduce a 5-pack. And it's really okay if the 5-pack, you know, doesn't fly off the shelves, but I want to offer it as an option along with a 3-pack, and then obviously being able to order individually. I think we'll test that out this year and see how that goes. Just adding a few more fragrances and keeping the bundle candle pack that I've had. I didn't do a spring or summer line this year at all on my candles, so I was feeling a little bit bad about that, to be honest. Okay, I have a little bit extra in here. I think I need to fill that one up. My candles tend to sell much better in the fall and winter. And I know I've talked to you guys about that before as well, but that's just, I can probably just pour now that I'm down to the last little bit here. Very good. So this one is not going to fill up a 12th candle, but all the way, but I'm going to fill it up as far as it'll go, and this will be for home purposes. So there you go. We got 11.5 candles out of this 80-ounce batch, and we are just going to allow these to set up, and I'll bring you back for the packaging and labeling. All right, it's the next day. We're going to go ahead and take these wick clips off, trim the wicks, and put the labels on. Now typically if the jars have any residue on the outside of like candle wax that dripped down, I'll wipe it down again with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and like a microfiber cloth. There's that. And then I usually take my sewing scissors. This is something that I've always done. I've always used sewing scissors to trim my wicks to 1/4 of an inch. These are nice and new and sharp, but I trim to about 1/4 of an inch. And they're just really easy to trim wicks with sewing scissors. They're really sharp. They cut right through the material of the wick, the cotton core. And that's it. And then I just place the lids on. Yes. The outsides of my jars appear pretty clean. I might wipe them down just a little bit. The cold throw on this is really good as well. It's just perfectly like balanced. The fragrance is perfectly balanced on these. It's not overly pumpkin. It's got, again, kind of like a roasted pumpkin, toasted pumpkin kind of smell to it. So not overly sweet, and it's got those cashmere notes, a little bit of cinnamon, clove. What else are on the notes? Cinnamon, clove, caramel, moss, and embers. Green leaves, pumpkin vine, cinnamon, clove, caramel, moss, and embers. It's just really well balanced. Okay, I'm gonna wipe down these jars and bring you right back to show you the label. All right, we're ready to label. So I'm calling this candle Cashmere Autumn. And like we talked about earlier in the video, isn't that cute? These labels took me a really long time to make. All of the labels for my fall candles took a super long time to make this year. I'm trying to make them just look a little bit more polished. Anyhow, I called this Cashmere Autumn instead of Cashmere Pumpkin, just to take pumpkin out of the label. It's in the fragrance notes, but again, I think sometimes when we go overly pumpkin on things, it's a turnoff. So I'm trying this out this year. We will see how it goes. And it doesn't smell, again, overly sweet. Like, you might not even notice the pumpkin note as like a sweet pumpkin note. When you smell it, again, it's got kind of like that toasted, like beautiful fall fragrance. Isn't that so cute? I love these. And then of course, don't forget to put your warning label on the bottom of each one. I go back and forth between using a white label and like a tan label like that, but I thought these labels would look better on a white background. I've created my labels on Canva, like always. And these are labels, come from onlinelabels.com, the actual label. I designed them in Canva and then I moved the design over to onlinelabels.com and used their software to print off with their labels. This is the OL1555. Beautiful. All right, I'll bring you back to show you how the other 4 candle labels came out when everything's all put together and show you the final product. Okay guys, here is the lineup. I think that they turned out so cute. So here's the ones that we made yesterday, Cashmere Autumn. Then we have Golden Hour. Golden Hour is fig, sea salt, caramelized sugar, brown sugar, green floral, dark musk, and amber. It smells super good. Cashmere Autumn. And then we have Dark Orchard. Dark Orchard is a combination of plum, orange, cherry, violet, cinnamon, cedar, and vanilla. This one surprised me. It smells really good. The cedar in there really kind of elevates it from maybe what would ordinarily be a really fruit-forward fragrance to sort of an outdoorsy fruit. It's just really an interesting and unique, beautiful fragrance. Then we have Sugar and Flame, and this one is a combination of cinnamon, cassia, clove, tonka, and vanilla. So it's a really cinnamon, spicy, forward fragrance, but it's not straight cinnamon because of that tonka and vanilla. It's really good. If you like a cinnamon fragrance, this one is really good. And then the last but not least, we have Honeyed Hearth. And Honey and Hearth smells like sea salt, honey, caramel butter, pecan, spice, and vanilla. It's gourmand, it's gorgeous, it's very cozy. So there's the lineup. These labels this year took me a super long time. Again, I'm really trying to work on making my labels look as good as I think the candles perform. So that takes some time, and there's kind of a learning curve here when you're trying to do something that's better than what you were doing before. So I don't know, guys. Tell me which one you think would be your favorite, or at the very least, tell me which label you like the best out of these 5. All right, everyone, that's how you make a big batch of candles for the fall. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Please remember to leave me some questions and comments below. That really means a lot to me. Share this video with a friend, and why not subscribe to my channel? All right, everyone, catch you on the next video. Bye. Keep shining.